Okay, how did my training change and evolve when I went from running 5K in 25 minutes to running 100K in 6 hours 42, which is 4 minutes per kilometer and 1 second. Now, I remember training for my first 5K and I remember everything that I put into it. I remember then mispacing, misjudging the distance, going into the red for the final 1-2 kilometers, getting over the finish line and thinking, cannot wait to do that again. And then I started to train specifically towards the 5K, and I got my time down to 20 minutes. And then I thought, if I can hold 4 minutes per kilometer for 5K, it's only a matter of training before I can do that for 10K, then a marathon, and then later I can do that for 100K and hold 4-minute pace for 6 hours and 40 minutes, which is almost exactly what I did with 6 hours and 42 minutes. And as crazy as that sounds, because it seems illogical, it's absolutely true. And in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what I did in order to make that happen, but more importantly, the mistakes I made initially that you don't need to make if you're watching this video. You can pass those and get straight to the good stuff, to running good times. Now, I got this great question in the comments from somebody in exactly the same position as what I've just described, the same position as when I started my running journey. Thank you again, Lee. Great content. I was training for a sub 20-minute 5K this Sunday, but your training methods have brought me such an improvement. I'm going for a sub 40-minute 10K instead, and with confidence. I have 3 ultras in May and June. Should I be increasing my interval reps or focus on speed? I currently have a plan of 30 times 400 meters, 24 to 30 times 500 meters, 15 to 20 times 800 meters, and then 12 to 15 times a kilometer, 10 times 5 minutes, 5 times 10 minutes. Now, this is exactly the mistake that I made when I went from, okay, 5K, I've got that in, now I'm gonna go for 10K, and then I'm gonna go for ultra marathon running. And I became obsessed, and I put absolutely everything into it. I went all in. The mistake I made was exactly that question. Okay, instead of 20 times 400 meters, I'm gonna do 30 times 400 meters because more volume equals a better runner. Have you ever made that mistake? It's such a common mistake in running to think that more intervals is better, more of a long run is gonna make more endurance, and therefore we're going to be better at all distances of running, whether you're training for 5K, a marathon, or an ultra marathon. Now, it's such a great question from Tom because, first of all, he's got the work ethic. He wants to put in the work, and that's exactly where I was. But also, he was training for a sub 20-minute 5K, and now he's able to attack a sub 40-minute 10K. That's huge progress in a very, very short amount of time. Now, let's simplify the goal here. What are we actually trying to do? So Tom is trying to go from running 20 minutes to running 40 minutes. Then he's going to do ultra marathons in spring next year. So he's going to be running for between 3-6 hours, maybe even longer than that. What does that mean? So the primary fuel source for the 5K and 10K is predominantly going to be glycogen. It's going to be carbohydrates. That changes for the marathon, and we use a mixture of fat and also glycogen. When we start to go longer than that, again, we use a mixture, but it's definitely more heavy on the fat side. So we have to take that into consideration. And then it's a good habit to get into to ask ourselves, what is the purpose of this run before every single run and before every strength session? What is the purpose? What are we actually trying to achieve here? For a recovery run, it might be as simple as I want to feel better and fresher at the end of the run than I do at the start of the run. Easy run will be bridging the gap between that recovery run and the next harder session, whether that's an interval session or a long run. But the purpose also feeds into the goal. So if we're training to run a 3-hour marathon and we're running a 25K long run at the weekend and 15 kilometers is at marathon pace, then the purpose is building endurance, but also building that race-paced effort and building volume at that effort level. For a session like he mentioned, 20 times 400 meters, and he wants to go up to 30 times 400 meters, the purpose of 20 times 400 meters, which is one of the hardest sessions you can possibly do, the purpose is to build volume at running faster than our 5K pace, which is going to make us a better runner in terms of it improves our VO2 max, improves our running economy, and makes our race pace, whether that's a 5K race and definitely for a marathon and an ultra marathon, makes that race pace feel feel easier. So if I'm attacking that 20 times 400 meters, I'm going out there and thinking, okay, I'm gonna be running 8 kilometers of volume at faster than my 5K pace. It's a very difficult session. Difficult for me to pace that, but what those reps look like for me is about 65 seconds per 400 meters. 60 seconds rest in between, and I'm trying to pace that so each individual rep is between 64 and 66 seconds. If I run 30 reps of 400 meters, it will mean that I need to slow down. So I'm no longer able to hit that 65 second per rep average. I need to slow down and probably running at either my 5K pace or slower. Does that make me a better runner? No, it doesn't, because we're attacking with that specific session a certain training stimulus. So going back to the original point of what is the purpose of the run, and we've got to be thinking quality over quantity. Just doing more won't make you better. So we're training to a specific goal, and how that changed for me when I went from training for 5K and 10Ks to then training for 100Ks is, yeah, initially I thought I just need to do more of everything, and that's gonna make me a better all-around running. And guess what? It gets you injured faster than anything else, because you're improving or increasing the total volume that you're running, you're increasing the total volume of your faster runs, you're increasing the total volume of your long run, which is 3 areas that if you do just one of those, it's the quickest way to get injured. If you do 3 of them, guaranteed. So here's what I did. I didn't neglect that top end speed, because that top end speed will come in useful whether you're trying to run 100 miles, you're trying to run 100K, you're trying to run a marathon, or you're trying to run 5K. It's always going to come in useful. And this is the reason for the triangle. The top of the triangle being your VO2 max, the base of the triangle being your aerobic capacity, the middle of the triangle being your speed endurance. You need all the components to build that surface area to become a good distance runner. And all that stuff is going to make you a good 5K runner, and it's going to make you a good ultra runner as well. So keep the 20 times 400 meters and the 8 times 800 meters, because that's attacking a certain training stimulus. What you want to change, and what you alluded to in your message, was 10 times 5 minutes, 5 times 10 minutes. Those are my key sessions. Those are my key go-to sessions, whether I'm training for a marathon or whether I'm training for 100K. You've got to progress up to those though. If you're used to doing 8,000 meters worth of volume, and that takes you about 30 minutes, and then you jump up to doing 50 minutes of total volume, 5 times 10 or 10 times 5 minutes, then you're going to need to bring that effort down, and that might look like you going into zone 3 or eventually you going into zone 4. But being able to play with those 2 levels, so you're improving your ability to move over the ground at that effort level, which is improving your lactate threshold and your lactate turn point. Perfect session that you mentioned was to do 12 times 1 kilometer. And to do that at your 10 kilometer pace, or between your 10 kilometer and half marathon pace, is a great session. Again, 60 seconds rest in between, and that will serve you really well for ultra running. Because when in an ultra marathon, when you go into the red and you need to recover as quickly as you can, maybe it's a climb, it's obviously getting more mountainous if you're out there in the trails doing ultra marathons. Maybe you go into a climb, you go into the red, and then you need to recover as quickly as you possibly can to hit the next segment of running. Those intervals, like 12 times 1 kilometer, 10 times 5 minutes, with just a minute in between, will serve you really well for that running, but in all of your running as well. So in summary, it's not about doing more, and it's not about doing more of everything. It's about doing the right things well. So it's about looking at the objective, looking at the target, working back, and then thinking, what is the purpose of each one of these runs? Get into the habit before you go for a run. What is the purpose of this run? But let me know in the comments, what are you currently training for and how are you getting on? And would you like me to make more videos about 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon, or ultra marathon running?